Hello there! In this lesson we'll be painting this beautiful stream and waterfall in a dark, mysterious forest. We're going to use acrylic paints and explore lots of exciting techniques. So let's get into it. Start by tinting the canvas. This creates an undertone that will make our colours richer and will be especially important when we lay down translucent white to suggest the water. You can find the outline for this scene in the link above. We're using a Montmartre brush marker to mark up our scene. Keep marking up and don't start the painting until you're happy with how it looks. Our rocks are the only element that need to be in the correct position. Everything else can be fairly loose. Lay in a little shading to remind you where they are when it comes to laying in the shadow tone. Apply some modelling paste with a large palette knife. This is optional, but creating a 3D surface on some of the elements will add real interest. Modelling paste is acrylic based, and you can also use it with oils. It dries very quickly, but you can also speed dry it with a hairdryer. I try to get as much texture with the modelling paste as I can. The more texture, the more effective the rocks will look when we dry brush on the top coat. While the paste is drying, lay some ivory black into each tree. Add a touch of water so the paint flows better and you have more control. The accompanying PDF lesson plan has a breakdown of all the colours and paint mixes used in this project. Big projects often need an assortment of brushes, so I'm using the 15-piece brush set. This pack has a variety of brushes and they'll last a long time if washed properly after use. After laying in all the trees, lay in more black onto the bank above the water. Now we'll move to the shadow areas of the rocks. Some water to the paint and lay in a wash over the rocks to give them some shape. Create a beige brown for the trees from titanium white, burnt umber and a touch of burnt sienna. Scrub it and keep the brush fairly dry so your colour is subtle. I really want to get across that my brook and waterfall is deep in a dark forest, so I'm keeping the colours quite muted and cool. That way, when the light comes through the trees, it'll have lots of impact. We haven't painted the sun shimmering through the foliage yet, and there'll be a hot spot between the trees, so I'll paint an orange tone over the trunks in this area. Decide where you want the sun to be positioned and lay it in with titanium white. To suggest foliage, I'm creating a mix from light green, mid-green and a touch of cadmium yellow and titanium white. Mix it well and lay it between the trees. This green is pretty unrealistic compared to the greens you see in nature, but we've done this on purpose and we'll lay other greens over the top in certain areas to get the desired effect. I find in some projects it's just as important to create interest with colours as to portray colour realistically. These colours aren't exactly what you'd find in nature, but will give the painting a more expressive quality. Lay some cadmium yellow over the green to create even more luminosity. Then sporadically place some yellow between the trees to suggest the light peeking through. Soften the edge of the sun hotspot and create white lines emitting from the centre. Lay foliage colour into the trees with a mix of mid-green and a touch of yellow ochre and crimson red. Create a soft tone by scumbling on some green for the foliage and brown for the trees in the bank below. Scumbling just means using a dry brush to scrub colour onto the surface. Looking at my canvas closely, it looks a little messy, but when I stand back, the soft look of a mossy riverbank comes perfectly into place. Now we can start on the rocks. Because we're using acrylics, we can build up loads of colours on top of one another. Acrylics literally take minutes to be dry enough to slap on the next coat, making it easy to build up translucent coats and create interesting textures. Lay in some fallen autumn leaves around the scene from a mixture of burnt sienna and raw umber. As well as adding interest and detail, they also add warmth. Each moss-covered rock is created by laying a dark green over the area and fading it into the black. You can then scrub a mid-green on, leaving some darker tone beneath to show through. Finally, dry brush a light green onto the top side to suggest light catching it. The mixes used to create the tones are outlined in that downloadable PDF. Exciting. We have our rocks in and can start on the water, so squeeze out some Chinese white and titanium white. First on with the Chinese white. The beauty of Chinese white is that it's not very opaque, so you can see the dirty tint under it, suggesting a thin layer of water rushing over the surface of those rocks. Follow the direction of the water with your brush strokes. Water takes its own course and doesn't look right if this isn't followed through. Build up the paint thinly. We want to keep it translucent at this stage. This is a great way to suggest moving water with acrylic paint. If we were using oils, we'd tackle the water and the whole painting in a different way. We get a lot of comments on oil paintings asking us whether they could be done in acrylic. The answer is yes, but you couldn't do it in the way we've just shown you, because acrylics don't blend easily, and you'll have to approach the whole project differently. You're also going to get a very different effect in most cases. Both types of paints have their strengths and limitations, however. We've left a fair bit of footage of creating the water in here because the direction of the brush strokes is so important to get a realistic effect. We've also included a copy of the finished painting in the PDF. You might not be interested in doing this exact project, but you might want to use some of the techniques outlined and apply it to your own painting. can apply the titanium white. Simply add it to areas where the water is deeper or thicker. You can see how much more opaque the titanium white is. It's good to understand the properties of the pigments, not only to know how they look on the canvas, but also how they react when mixed. The results from mixing titanium white with a colour is totally different to using Chinese white. Titanium white gives a strong, brilliant look and creates colours that would suit pop art or fantasy art. Chinese white gives colours a more natural look and is better suited to realistic work. Of course, in art there are no hard rules, and you can always break them. I use titanium white to create the light green on the rocks and between the trees. The colours don't look that natural, but work because they're vibrant and conspicuous. I also decided to pop in a shrub to help the composition, as there seemed to be too much open space. Well, thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the project as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Keep an eye out for our other lessons, and remember, keep on painting.